Nice to see you. Net Neutrality, loving the title once again today. Thanks for joining us on Facebook and YouTube Live. Of course, if you're listening to the podcast, remember to rate and review. Get that like in there quickly. Thank you, Liz. Welcome to the show on YouTube. Share those YouTube channels. Like the page. Pop it all around. Make it nice. Make it yummy. I don't know what that means. I really have no clue what that means. I'm just excited, and I've had a lot of coffee, and I'm thrilled to be sitting here talking hockey with you guys, so thanks for joining us. Net neutrality means a couple things. We have what we like to call a double entendre. We'll get a little, actually, I don't even know if that's technically right. I'm sure somebody will correct me if it's not. But net neutrality was passed today. Or I should say it was rebuked, it was rebuffed, it was tossed aside. Here in the States, the FCC voted against it. We will no longer have net neutrality. And it also means we're talking goalies on the Hockey Talk Show today because there's a lot of net neutrality out there. They are definitely making things neutral. The goaltenders of the National Hockey League making a ton of news, and we're going to talk about a lot of that on the program tonight as well. We're talking Rangers tonight. We're talking Blue Jackets tonight. Vegas, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Dallas, the Ottawa Senators, and more. So if those are your teams, get ready to do some chatting with us in the YouTube and Facebook comments. And, of course, numbers live at 631-438-1768. That's 631-438-1768. Lots to get into. Let's start with one of the goalie things that we have. I found this to be rather fascinating, downright fascinating. Goalie cartwheels are becoming a thing, believe it or not. Yeah, goalie cartwheels. If I told you that a goaltender in the National Hockey League could do a full-on cartwheel with all of their equipment on, would you believe me? Would you be able to believe that? A goalie, full equipment, doing an actual cartwheel. Skates and all, baby. Skates, pads, everything. Would you believe that if I told you that were the case? We have it for you. His name is Kari Lehtinen. Here's what happens when you beat the pants off the New York Islanders. You go back in the dressing room and you hang out with Vern Fiddler and you do a cartwheel for everybody. Here's Kari Lehtinen from just last night, courtesy of Vernon Fiddler's Twitter. Let's take a look at him. Here he goes, getting ready for it, and full cartwheel. Almost blew the landing. Looks like he pulled a Henry, but he still pulled it off.
Excellent.
He still pulled it off. That just kind of shows you what kind of an athlete he is. With no goalie equipment and weeks of training, I could not pull off a cartwheel as good as Kari Lehtinen did after beating the pants off the New York Islanders. There you go. After watching Dallas and the Islanders last night, though, I wanted to do a half cartwheel and smash my face into the ground. That's how painful that damn game was for Islander fans last night. It always amazes me, you know, when you watch a team that's capable, and we've all been through this. We've all been through this with our teams. But when you watch a team who you know is good and then comes out and just lays a big fat goose egg, I always wondered about why that happened. Just a big fat goose egg. You look at them and you go, where's the team that was dominating all year long? Some nights you just can't show up. Kari Lehtinen did killer, though, for the Dallas Stars in their game last night. Did super, super well for them. And I was just overall impressed with his game to the umpteenth degree. As far as games go tonight, Islanders are right back in it. They'll take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let's take a second from our net neutrality discussions and talk about a non-goaltender situation. By the way, can you stop predicting the Rangers win? I feel like every time you do, they lose. Yeah, I don't know how they lost to Ottawa last night. That was a little disappointing. Think how I feel. I put 5 bills on them, so I'm really hurting today. I am really hurting today. I don't know if it's the predicting that's the problem as much as the betting that is the issue. But former Ranger Brandon Dubinsky and current Blue Jacket, have you guys seen this? He's out 6 to 8 weeks with a facial fracture. Dear Lord. I'm not going to play the video for you. You can just take a look at it right there. You can see what's happening. Zach Kassian is literally breaking his face. Literally breaking. You know what people yell at you all the time? My mother told me, you know, and it's funny, my wife kind of picked up the torch on this one. I'm going to break your face. You know, I hear a lot of that on a daily basis. I'm going to break your face. Well, here's a look. Zach Kassian actually broke Brandon Dubinsky's face. Here's the tragedy with this. Here's why I bring it up. If it was a normal story, I honestly wouldn't do it, and it certainly wouldn't make its way into our net neutrality episode. But this happened in a 7-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers in the final 2 minutes. I mean, talk about a completely useless injury that did not have to happen. That breaks my heart. That honestly breaks my heart. How do you get your face broken, lose a player for 6 to 8 weeks with just minutes left in a game that you were losing 7-2? I mean, I know guys get into this and they get upset and all that stuff, but you got to keep your head about you. You really, really got to keep your head about you. I mean, it's just horrific. I get it. You're heated. The game's tight. You know, whatever it is. Things always happen. But on a 7-2 loss with minutes left, now you lose. Now you're out for 6 to 8 weeks. Awful news for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Great news for everybody who's going to play the Columbus Blue Jackets, though, in the next 6 to 8 weeks. You know, Brandon Dubinsky is not one of these guys that scores 40 goals a year, but he's one of these important locker room guys. You know, Brandon in the lineup makes a difference no matter what. He's one of the beloved characters no matter where he go. I mean, I think he's only really played with the Rangers and the Columbus Blue Jackets, or the Ohio Rangers, as I like to call them sometimes. But you know, it's just, I mean, use your head and not to get it broken. Just use your head, man. And that's the interesting thing about it too, is Brandon Dubinsky is a fairly smart player. He should know better than to drop the gloves with a Zach Kassian in a 7-2 loss with a minute. I mean, was there even a minute left? I don't even know. And by the way, this happened in the game that Tortorella didn't answer any questions, so it was hard to get an update from him. The only thing we really got was a tweet from the Columbus Blue Jackets public relations team that said Dubinsky has been placed on IR, expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks due to an orbital bone fracture. I don't know much, but I know that's the bone that orbits around your throat. Suffered versus the Edmonton Oilers last night. Jarmo Kekalainen took questions saying that it was a orbital fracture, out 6 weeks. At this time, the damage has not affected the function of his eye and long-term vision. He will continue to be monitored closely by our medical team. I will drop that video in the descriptions below so you guys can check that out because Kassian hit it. And by the way, 2 to 3 punch fight. I mean, it was nothing, and it was over before it started. It was over before it started. And the fight doesn't even really matter. It's just the problem is, you know, losing the guy for as long as you're losing him for. You know, that's the heartbreaking part. Speaking of losing a guy, Minnesota's in a little bit of trouble here, and it involves Devan Dubnyk as we circle back to our net neutrality topic of the evening. Dubnyk out week to week with a lower body injury. It's funny how we went from day-to-day injuries to now week to week. I'm waiting for the 6 to 8 week injuries to turn into month-to-month injuries. Yeah, he's out month to month. That's what I'm waiting for the creative general managers of the National Hockey League to come up with next. Devan Dubnyk, week-to-week lower body injury. He was injured in the first period of a 2-1 shootout win against the Calgary Flames on Tuesday. Boost Brujo said, quote, he's coming on the trip, but he's not going to play. He will probably be off the ice until the weekend. Then we're going into Ottawa on Tuesday and then Florida, and he's got a better chance to get on the ice with the team then. Following a game against the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday, the Wild begin a 4-game road trip against the Chicago Blackhawks on Saturday. Dubnyk is 12-8-2 with a 2.69 goals against average, 916 save percentage. Alex Stalock will be in the net for Minnesota. He made 16 saves on 17 shots in the win against Calgary. He'll start against the Maple Leafs tonight. Puck drop there at 8 o'clock. That is that the national game? Oh, no, they just have the 8 o'clock start. Stalock is 4-3-1 with a 2.93 goals against average and a 907 save percentage. It's been the goaltending for Minnesota with Zach Parise missing so much time that has kept them somewhat competitive so far in this season. Not as great as they wanted to be, the Minnesota Wild, but they've certainly resurged a little bit. They are 7-3 in their last 10, which is, you can see them start to climb up a little bit in the standings over there in the West, and they are in the last wild card playoff spot for tonight. Again, remember, this was a team that was predicted to go Final Four in the West, and the fact that they got off to such a slow start was a real story for us for quite some time. But Dubnyk has settled back in. Stalock has been solid in the backup role, and now obviously he'll get a little bit more of a prominent role with the franchise there. This would probably be my main topic for net neutrality tonight, and that's these two lovebirds right over here. Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray will meet this evening, and what I think will be the game to watch, obviously outside of your own games that you guys are going to be watching your local teams. But I think that this one is going to be super, super intense, as these two both coming off of IR. Matt Murray, this will be his first game back in the net. It'll be in Vegas, and they'll be facing each other for the first time since Marc-Andre Fleury was selected by the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft. So there is going to be, and you know what the funny thing is? I mean, these guys are they're like friends. They're like pretty tight friends. Think about all they went through. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury got this franchise Stanley Cup and then had to sit behind Matt Murray and watch him help the team win too. Not an easy thing to do. It was not an easy process for Marc-Andre Fleury, but he went through it. And by the way, he stepped in at times. He really stepped in at times to help that team achieve what they needed to achieve. But even all through all of that, even Marc-Andre Fleury sitting on the bench with his Stanley Cup ring, he was still a good guy to Matt Murray. He was still nice to him. It could not have been easy to be doing that. Early this afternoon, Coach Mike Sullivan made it official. Murray would return from a lower body injury that kept him out of the lineup since November 27th to start against the Vegas Golden Knights. It completed this story of intrigue, whether or not these two would get together this evening. We had talked about that the other day. Matt Murray commented on this yesterday saying, quote, "It's exciting for me. He was definitely my mentor, the biggest mentor I've had in my pro career. I wish I had more time to study under him and more time to be around him, but unfortunately, we're on different sides now." I mean, think about Matt Murray, too. The quickest goaltender in the history of the National Hockey League to win 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, it's going to be a pretty amazing matchup tonight with Vegas and Pittsburgh. Hence why the episode got the title of Net Neutrality. Not that the fact that net neutrality being in our title helps our views go up. It has nothing to do with that. But that is part of it. I mean, we have a lot of goaltending things to talk about between Dubnyk out and Kari Lehtinen doing the flip. If you missed that and you're just joining us, you can go back and watch the start of the show once the episode is over. But the big story is going to be Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray. Let me know in the comments below, no cheating if you're watching this tomorrow, who you think wins that matchup. I honestly don't know. It's going to be exciting. I love Vegas. I love Vegas even more at home. But it's hard to, vote against the Pittsburgh Penguins ever. I mean, it really is hard to vote against them ever. But you can't deny Vegas, even though they've cooled off a little bit. Still 6-3-1 in their last 10. But God, you gotta love them. What's that home record for Vegas? Vegas's home record is 11-2-1. The people of Las Vegas have only witnessed 3 losses in the history of their franchise so far. I mean, that's kind of crazy. It's hard to bet against that record, too. It really, really is. That has got to be a difficult one. That has got to be a real, real difficult one. Let's hop off the net neutrality for 1 second here and go to this other story that is pretty intriguing to me, especially since I thought he had a little bit more in the tank. Chris Neil announced his retirement in a ceremony with the Ottawa Senators early this morning. He officially retired. He had not suited up for a game so far in the 2017-18 season. The last he played for Ottawa was in the playoffs last season. He, from what I understand, received several contract offers in the offseason. None were good enough. And I don't actually know if he got one from Ottawa. I believe he did. Perhaps it wasn't for the right money, or I might be, talking out of school here. He may not have gotten an offer from the Senators, but Chris Neil, 15 years with the same franchise, is rather amazing, and he decided to announce his retirement this morning. I thought it might have been a smidge rushed because of the circumstances, and we've been talking about this. The NHL is going to play an outdoor game with Ottawa, the NHL 100 Classic, Ottawa and Montreal, and he retired this morning, and then officially announced that he was going to be a part of the alumni game, which to me looks like somebody's got some money on the Ottawa Senators alumni. I mean, that's kind of cheating. I mean, this is like hiring the former college baseball player to come work in your law firm, because you want the softball team to be killer. I think that's what that is. Seemed like a little strange. Like, I'm finally going to retire. And by the way, I want to be in that alumni game. Like, he hadn't played the whole year. He could retire whenever he wanted to. He chose today so we can get into the alumni game when that comes about. I'm sure we'll have some shots, and we'll talk about the NHL 100 after it's done. It looks like they got a beautiful setting over there in Ottawa. I know there's not a ton of coverage in the States. I was honestly going to do a little bit more on it tonight, but maybe we'll push it a little bit as we get into things, because I really felt there was so much goaltender news. I wanted to keep the focus on the goalies, but I do want to break away for a second here to talk about Chris Neil. Eddie on YouTube, Vegas will win because the Penguins will be all hungover after going to Vegas clubs last night. Probably. Let me tell you something. That does not hurt the 11-2-1 record at home. Okay? It does not. And I haven't been able to confirm this, but I heard that, and again, this was a little bit of chatter from one of the writers in the NHL world. I don't want to get too specific, but I had heard that something crazy like 80% of the teams that have gone in to play Vegas have stayed an extra night, whether it was before or after. I think most of them were after. Remember, we talked about this early on, one of the early episodes of the Hockey Talk Show. We talked about how the NHL teams were going to handle Vegas. I forgot what team it was that we were talking about. Oh, damn it. But the general manager had been on Hockey Central at noon, and we had the audio for you of him saying, like, look, we're not, we get it. Come in, play the game. We'll stay an extra night. We'll leave later on the next day, to accommodate everybody to go out and have their little fun there, blow off some steam. And I thought that was a great, mature way to handle it. I actually praised that sort of mentality going into Vegas. But I did find that number to be a little fascinating, that like 80% of the teams that have gone in there have wound up staying an extra day. And then you look at the Vegas home record and it's 11-2-1. Evan, us locals refer to this as the quote Vegas flu. Is that what you guys call it? The Vegas flu? That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. That's Eddie. That's not a face-off dot. Sydney Blue Chunks on the ice. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah. What happens in Vegas is an improved home record is what happens in Vegas. But 80% of the team spending an extra night. They're certainly enjoying this. Now, I wonder if that wears off over time for Vegas, or if that is always going to be the home ice advantage for them. Are they always going to have that home ice advantage? It's not like the appeal of Vegas ever really fades. And every year you got a new team, younger guys. I think for a really, really long time, it's going to be an advantage for the Vegas Golden Knights. I really, really do. It's something to think about with Pittsburgh and, Vegas for tonight. That Evgeny Malkin, I hear, likes to put down the old vodka in the clubs. I just hear. This is all hearsay. I shan't be sued for this because allegedly he likes to throw down the old vodka there. I don't know. I couldn't honestly pick one tonight. Vegas flu is kind of hilarious. I might have to go with the Vegas Golden Knights on this one. As a team, it's funny. This is really tough. This is really tough because I love the way Vegas is. They're so fast and their forecheck is so great. Just so great. By the way, since we were talking about Chris Neal in Ottawa, you look at Ottawa and they play this like laid back defense. There's like 4 guys on the blue line. I hate it. I really, really hate it. Most of the National Hockey League has gone to that in a penalty kill scenario. If you've noticed this, if you're watching the games tonight, take a look at it. If the team is killing a penalty, they're giving the other teams, half of the ice. They're giving them half of the ice sheet, and they're literally sitting from red line to their own blue line, trying to make that entry difficult. And it does become difficult, and a lot of teams have been trying to beat that sort of 1-4, I guess they'll call it, when you're in normal strength. But a lot of them have adopted that sort of laid back defense on the penalty kill. If you look at some teams, they've adopted that laid back all the time. And Ottawa and Guy Boucher is one of those guys. That's like his main style of play. But you look at that versus what Vegas does, which is like really just loads up that neutral zone and the offensive zone to try and stop people from coming out. It's just so effective. It's so effective. And the Pittsburgh D has got to be really active if they want to beat them. The only way you beat Vegas is with a great puck moving defenseman, coming out of your own end, and just shots, just shots. Vegas is going to be that much tougher with Marc-Andre Fleury back in net. Boy, and I never thought it would be so difficult to pick a winner between the expansion team and the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champions. But this is so evenly matched. It is so evenly matched. I'd love to say, I would honestly give the advantage to Marc-Andre Fleury if he had been playing all this much time, I mean, Matt Murray is coming back off an injury as well, but not as long and severe as Marc-Andre Fleury's was. So if Marc-Andre Fleury had been playing for the last 2 weeks, I would say he's got the edge in the matchup with the two. And I would give the team edge to Pittsburgh. But again, all these things are sort of up in the air a little bit, All these things are up in the air just a little bit. Vegas 6, Pittsburgh 3, final score prediction from Eddie. I was right about the Dallas Rangers game last week. Yeah, I've been wrong about every Rangers game. That's why I'm being asked not to predict Ranger games anymore. It's totally fair. Totally get it. I'm going to go with Vegas. I'm going to stick with Vegas. I wonder if New York and Los Angeles have similar situations. What's interesting to me, I brought this up too on a previous show, and I've thought this for a long time. You would think the Rangers would have more of an advantage of this, and I'll tell you why. And you know what? Let me rephrase that. You would think the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders would have more of an advantage on this, and I bring it up for a couple of reasons. Most of the time, visiting teams come in, and there's a 3-game swing in there. Most of the time, the schedule, you're playing the Devils, the Rangers, and the Islanders on your, especially for West Coast teams. You know, it's a little different for Pittsburgh. You know, like Boston doesn't really do that all that often. They'll come in and play one and then pop out and play whatever because, you know, Eastern travel's easier. But, you know, when the Ducks come over or San Jose or Vancouver, you know, they're coming in, they're playing the Devils, or, you know, and you're in Manhattan most of the time. A lot of teams do this, not all of them. Some of them will move around, but most of the time they're in one hotel in Manhattan, and they're just busing it to Brooklyn and the Rock. I mean, the Rock's right there. It's super easy. So they're in one hotel, you know, so you think that it would be harder to play. And I know a lot of teams do actually struggle through that 3-game stretch, Rangers, Devils, Islanders, but you really don't hear about a Manhattan flu like you do a Vegas flu. You know, you don't hear about that a lot. And I brought this up, and this is, you know, it's weird, but they're really outside of a slot machine, and I say this loosely, there's really not much you can actually do in Vegas that you can't do in New York, if you see where I'm going with this. You know what I'm saying? Like the things that you can't do inside of Vegas city limits, you can really, it's not all that hard to accomplish this in New York. I mean, you put on any TV station in the hotel in Manhattan and they're going to be advertising, you know, services, you know what I'm saying? So, and there's bars open till 4 o'clock in the morning. What time do bars open? God, I'm old. Is it 4 or is it 2? I think it's 4. I used to know this, but I think it's 4. I'm so disgusted with myself. What happened to my life? Got really old quick. Can't even remember what time the city bars are open till. I haven't seen a last call on a bar in a really, really long time. And yeah, Los Angeles, the same thing. I mean, it's easier in New York. LA is so spread out, you know, but they do have that downtown area by the arena over there, by the Staples Center. So I wonder if the other teams struggle with it. I think it's just there is something about Vegas. There is something about Vegas that you feel like to hell with it. You know, like when you're there, like whether that's gambling more money than you should or eating more buffets than you should, like whatever scale you're on in morality there. It is kind of like you're throwing caution to the wind sometimes when you get to Vegas. You do have that feeling like, oh, this doesn't count while I'm here. You know, like you kind of have that feeling. Like for the most part, thanks, Liz, 4 o'clock in the morning. God, I'm embarrassed. For the most part, I would not necessarily dangle, you know, hundreds of feet in the air on a roller coaster, but I did it in Vegas. You know, I wouldn't hang off the side of a Space Needle, but people do it in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? So there is that kind of like you're in Vegas thing. I like that, the Vegas flu. But yeah, I don't think that people have it in New York or LA. And again, you get in a lot more trouble for doing some of those things in New York because that is super illegal. As opposed to, you know, in Manhattan. But you certainly, as far as drinking goes, have the same exact vices to deal with, you know, once you're in Manhattan. So I think I'm going to go with Vegas. I think I'm going to go with Vegas tonight. I like the Vegas flu thing. I think my bet would be, now I don't know if Pittsburgh was in a day early, but my bet would be Vegas flu helps the Golden Knights and Marc-Andre Fleury eke out a win over there. Let's keep it in Manhattan and talk about the king, Henrik Lundqvist. 27 saves in the Rangers lost to the Ottawa Senators, but what's important, he surpassed 20,000 saves in his career. Lundqvist became the 15th goalie to make 20,000 saves since data was officially kept, beginning with the 55-56 season. Lundqvist joined Marty Brodeur, Roberto Luongo, Patrick Waugh, Tony Esposito, Glenn Hall, Curtis Joseph, Ed Belford, John Van Beesbrook, Gump Worsley, Grant Fuhr, and Gillies Maloche, Sean Burke, Jacques Plant, and Nikolai Javibulin as the only goalies with at least 20,000 saves. Among them, they have won 27 Vezina trophies, and 7 of the 12 eligible players are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Lundqvist, only one of 15 goalies to reach 20,000 saves. Now, Ranger fans, this leads me to the all-important debate. Net Neutrality Show, we're talking goaltenders. Is 30 better than 35? That's the question. That's what I want you to think about. Is Henrik Lundqvist the best goalie the Rangers have ever seen? Is he better than Mike Richter? Thoughts in the comments below. Even if you're not a Ranger fan, I want to know your opinion on this. Is he a better Ranger? Forget stats. Forget it. Forget it. Even though we did kind of throw one stat at you just now. But I look at this list, and there's a lot of great goalies on this list, and I notice there's one goalie who's great, but not on that list, and that's Mike Richter. But Mike Richter won you a cup, and Henrik has not been able to. And we all know that goalies are a big part of winning a cup, but not the only part. Does the Rangers championship in 94 vindicate Mike Richter as better than Henrik Lundqvist? In the fantasy world of let's make up questions just because we have to fill time on a talk show, if you had to build a team and the 2 goalies that were available, you can only pick one, who do you draft? 30 or 35? Eddie Jockman is a great answer, but does not apply to our current conversation. You got to pick. Who's better? Who are you going into battle with? Because we can sit here, we can compare their save percentages, and we can compare all these crazy things. But we all know that the game has changed drastically from the time that Richter played to the time that Lundqvist is playing now. You know, who would you rather go with? All right, we have our first insane statement of the evening. John Van Beesbrook was better than Richter, too. He just has the cup. You think Beezer was better than Richter? I don't know. I never really saw it that way. Here's the thing you have to consider and think about this. Richter was scrappy as hell. Richter was feisty and scrappy. He was far too short to be a good goaltender, you know. He wasn't as good looking as Henrik Lundqvist. He certainly did not use as much hair gel. But all of that aside, he brought the team to a championship. And Henrik Lundqvist has not been able to do that. Does that not mean anything to you people? Are we all in on 30? Does 35 not get a chance at this whatsoever? No, John Davidson's not in the conversation at all. Stop trying to expand this. It's just, I want to get down to the 2 of them. What do you do? Who do you draft? Who do you take? The goalie that delivered the only championship you've had, most of you in a lifetime. I doubt there's somebody who was alive in 40 watching this. If you were, God bless you. I'd like you to send me a copy of your diet. Fax it. I know you're not into the new. Send a fax. I know we put one stat. I know we put the save, but even you can throw the 20,000 save. It's a nice stat to have, but toss it out. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a better goaltender. That doesn't necessarily mean I would take him. I mean, I wouldn't take Nikolai Javibulin, and he's got 20,000 saves, and he has a cup. I mean, there's tons of goalies I would take before Javibulin, you know. Now, none of them ever played for the Islanders, which is tragic, but still, you know. I find it fascinating that nobody's saying Mike Richter in this conversation. Kevin Weeks. Well, we'd all take Kevin Weeks over everybody. I mean, we all would take Kevin Weeks. That goes without saying. There are some things you just don't have to say, you know. Kevin Weeks. The sad part about Kevin Weeks is Kevin Weeks literally started taking everything Lundqvist did. The suits, you know what I'm saying? Like he's a poor man's Lundqvist. He really, I hate to say it because I feel like he's a hell of a nice guy, but I feel like Weeksy's a poor man's Lundqvist. I really, really do. I'm going to continue to think about this. I don't know if I would necessarily go with Lundqvist over Mike Richter. Because the scrappiness. I like the scrappiness. You know? Richter was in some battles. Let's not forget. Like, he beat Marty Brodeur. Like, he beat some good goaltenders in the prime of their career to go on and win that 94 Cup. Not an easy thing to do. You know? Really, really not an easy thing to do. And everybody loves Richter. I know everybody loves King Henrik too, but I'm just saying. I mean, there's a lot to think about there. There is a lot to think about there. Ottawa Senators and some trade rumors here before we wrap up. And by the way, I'm going to show you the most amazing video ever that you're going to see today. I can't say ever and ever, but the most amazing video you're going to see today, I'm going to show it to you, and it is a hockey video. Ken Warren from the Ottawa Sun is reporting that Senators General Manager Pierre Dorion said yesterday he will not be replacing Guy Boucher as head coach. Dorion said, Guy was a great coach last year. He got us one goal from the Stanley Cup final. He is staying. But he said when asked about a trade, quote, we're looking at everything. I love this. The old GM quote of we're looking at everything. I think I have talked to 27 or 28 of my 30 general manager counterparts in the last 3 days. We're looking for solutions. When you go through streaks like this, you have to look at everything. Now, I know that GMs contact each other consistently, but when you can say, I honestly have spoken to everybody but 2 GMs, that's panic mode. That's a little bit of panic mode. Dorian acknowledged he's got a 10-team no-trade list from his players with no trade clauses, including captain Erik Karlsson. However, he said the club's priority is to retain the superstar defenseman for the remainder of his career. I just don't see Erik Karlsson on this team in 2 years. I don't know when he's going to go. I just don't see him there in 2 years. I just don't see it. And I don't understand moving some of the other pieces. Liz, the 94 team was ridiculous, though. I don't think the Rangers have had a team like that since. Messier, Leach, no one has been near them since. What are you saying? Dan Girardi's not as good as Leach? Is that why they let him go? Is that why the animosity? Confused. Is Leach better than Ryan McDonough? Is that what you're saying? Leach better than Ryan McDonough? I don't know. You're telling me that Marc Messier is better than Rick Nash, because I'm not going to believe you. I'm not going to sit here and believe this talk. Well, that's been my critique of the Rangers ever since. I mean, they're putting far too much on Lundqvist and not building their team out, not getting Leaches and Messier's in here, or guys even close. That's the thing too, and the problem is, God, if I said this the other night. And we kind of saw a meltdown from the Islanders last night. But if you look at the Rangers, if Lundqvist goes on a 5-game cold streak, or if he gets hurt, I mean, you can't lose 5 games in a row in the Metro Division and think you're going to stay in it. I mean, it's just, that division is impossible. Impossible. It's been a consensus now amongst hockey talking heads, a little bit after I've been saying it, but still. That 5 are going to make it in the Metro Division, and only 3 from the East, from the Atlantic. I mean, that's how important the Metro is. We're all forgetting what the hell the other name of the division is. Nick Kiprio said that forward Mike Hoffman is the name he's hearing most regarding the Senators' trade speculation, and thinks he'll get traded faster than most. I don't get trading Mike Hoffman. Although Alan Mitchell from The Athletic believes Hoffman would be a good fit for the Edmonton Oilers to address the need for a skilled shooter on Connor McDavid's line. However, he's certain the Oilers and Senators would be Oh, he's not certain the Oilers and Senators would be a good trade fit, noting the latter requires defense. Graham Nichols makes a deep dive into the potential trade value of the struggling Senators defenseman Cody Ceci. I mean, literally everybody is. It's like a garage sale over at the Senators now. People are just. It's a tag sale. People are literally going through their house looking for parts to sell off and to pick up. The Colorado Avalanche had interest in CC prior to shipping center Matt Duchene to Ottawa. Nichols suggests that doesn't necessarily mean the team would have been the centerpiece of the return, or CC would have been the centerpiece of the return of the Duchene trade, but that didn't happen that way. I just don't know who the Senators are going to get rid of, but I think they should start getting rid of a lot of parts. My idea of trading Henrik Lundqvist if the Rangers were struggling holds true, and is the same theory that you can use for the Ottawa Senators if they're struggling with, Erik Karlsson. The only difference is you're not struggling against the window of Lundqvist's age. You're struggling against the window of Erik Karlsson is leaving you because he's worth far more than you're willing to pay him. Sharks GM Doug Wilson said he has no intention of trading away his key young core of players for a quick fix. Before the trade deadline on February 26, Wilson feels questions about his current roster could come into greater focus once everyone is healthy. I think the Sharks are doing okay, but they certainly need to pick it up a little bit. The problem with the Sharks is, and they're in a playoff spot, they haven't been able to put too much distance between them and the other teams that are biting at their ankles. Sorry for the pun. I actually didn't mean to do that. Dallas, Minnesota, Chicago, Calgary. Calgary, Chicago, Minnesota all have 35 points like San Jose. Dallas has 37, but they're in the other conference, which makes it a difference. So they have to figure that out. But people are still waiting for Edmonton to pop into this, and they're 7 points out of a playoff spot right now. 7 points. People are still. I mean, and I get it. I have that much faith in Connor McDavid too. I totally get it. I'm not ready to close the book on the Edmonton Oilers either because, frankly, if they get hot and if Cam Talbot puts it together, that's all you need in Edmonton. All you need is Cam Talbot and, 97 and everybody else to be just fairly mediocre, and you are off and running. Last bit of video that we have for you tonight on the Hockey Talk Show. We all seen these guys shooting from center ice to win a car. When we go over to Vancouver to watch this bit of amazingness, here's this young dude taking his shot. Let's bring this in here. 3 shots. And remember, they put that little board over the net there, so you only have that little puck-sized space to get in.
To drive away in this brand new car.
Shot 1's embarrassing.
All right. Just a little bit to the right. Oh, man. Hey, guys, cheer him on. This is the one. This is the one.
Shot 2 is embarrassing. Shot 3.
Come on, Aaron.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Make some noise!
I like how the arena host is far more excited.
A winner!
Oh, my God.
Look how excited she is.
Okay. I am speechless. Try and put into words what's going through your head right now.
It'll be a long drive home, but be worth it.
Oh my gosh. This is like history, guys. We have just witnessed history. This is insane. Go check out your brand new car, Aaron.
It's a good shot. Look, on the ice.
Gosh.
Even hits a couple of patches there.
I
Bops
think,
up a little bit. Still makes it in.
have some goosebumps.
Still makes it in.
Get in the passenger seat, man. All right, guys. That is amazing. One more time, make some noise for Aaron going home in his brand new car.
Is that even a car? That looks like a wind-up toy. Is there a wind-up on the back of that thing? What is that? What the hell is that? I don't even know what that is. That looks like something out of Toy Story. I'm not even. Maybe that's why he wasn't all that excited, because that barely even qualifies. That's 3/4 of a car. I don't even know if we can technically. Guys sitting there like, I'd be excited if it wasn't a Toyota. Honestly, I mean, at least if it was a Cadillac, I'd be jumping up and down a little. I'll give you a little excitement, but for a Toyota, I don't think so. Guy won a Toyota with a shot from the middle of the ice. That is ridiculously amazing. Even more so, he impressed the arena lady, which I think is going to be a little bit more of a benefit for the young man. All right, that is going to wrap it up for the Hockey Talk Show tonight. Our net neutrality episode, we covered a ton of goaltenders. I think the question of the show that we're going to leave going in the comments below, whether you watch this tomorrow or 4 weeks from now, if you were starting a team, would you take Lundqvist or would you take Mike Richter? Something to think about. That is something to think about. I don't think we're putting enough, emphasis on winning championships, because old Ricky Richter is there. He stole a couple of games in that run of 94. I will agree with the sentiment that, Leach and Messier, that team was good, and maybe the Rangers never built a better team since. But still, I think it's a tough. I don't think it's an easy, pick. I don't think it's an easy pick there. I would honestly, before I officially made it, phone a friend. I would phone a friend. I would phone George McPhee and be like, what would you do? You seem to know how to do these things. You seem to know how to fantasy draft. Do you think, honestly, here's question number 2. Question number 1, would you pick Lundqvist or would you pick Richter? Question number 2, how much over the summer do you think George McPhee was simming the expansion draft on NHL 18? How much? A couple times? 3 or 4? 20? I think 20. I think these guys obsess over this stuff. And I don't think it's beyond them to go and dip into the EA Sports a little bit. So I'm going to be frank with you. You mean to tell me, you're sitting there telling me that a man part of hockey for 40 some odd years who has kids, all right, they're probably a little bit older than like teenagers, but still, didn't pick up an NHL 18 and sim an expansion draft before he got up to it? I find that hard to believe. And let me just further pat myself on the back. That's why this show is better than all the other hockey shows, because nobody's asked him that yet. That'd be the first question I ask George McPhee. Leave your comments below, really, about the Richter Lundqvist thing. But if you want to chime in on the McPhee thing, I'm cool with that too. 5 Live, we're back tomorrow night with another Hockey Talk Show live here on Facebook and YouTube. Great schedule of games this evening. Caps and Bruins. By the way, Bruins put Matt Bolesky on waivers. That's kind of crazy. That is a little bit crazy. Bolesky was a big signing. Remember, one of those big mistake signings. Had a huge year, 22 goals with Anaheim. Left and went off and signed a fairly significant 5-year contract with Boston. And halfway through, Boston finally cutting ties. I think teams have till tomorrow at noon to claim him. I don't really foresee a lot of teams doing that. Although the one interesting part would be Anaheim. I haven't looked at the salary implications, but Anaheim would be interesting to bring him back to maybe recapture some of the magic, but more so plug in some of the holes that they have with all of their injuries. So keep your eye on the waiver wire for tomorrow. We'll update you on that. Buffalo and Philly should be an interesting one between a last place team or second to last place team and a middle team like Philly scrapping in to get into the playoffs. Isles and Columbus, sans Brandon Dubinsky tonight. Devils will beat up on Montreal for sure. Anaheim at St. Louis, Minnesota and the Leafs, Winnipeg and Chicago, Florida and Colorado, San Jose, Calgary, Nashville and Edmonton, Tampa and Arizona, and Vegas and Pittsburgh. That's the 10 o'clock game, by the way, on the NHL Network. So everybody, if you stay up late, you can take that one in. I didn't forget about the Winter Classic and the road to the Winter Classic. I'm kind of giving everybody a little bit of time to DVR that and catch up to it. But did you see the first episode? Let me know if you did in the comments below. Net neutrality. A shame that they got rid of it here in the States. A shame. It worked really well in the States. Works good in the National Hockey League too. Fun talking about the goalies tonight. I will see you guys on that next shift. Have a great